Hello everyone, and thank you for coming back to yet another episode of The Gloving Paradigm. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD Dubuque, and this week is actually going to be a very interesting week, mostly just because this is a topic that is just a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of new people, but just a lot of people in general that I interact with on Discord really kind of make these comments, and honestly, I think I need to cover it because it's something that they always ask me how to do it, and I explain my thoughts and my feelings on the matter, and they are like, holy crap, that actually makes a lot of sense. You should be telling people about it. So here we are. We are going to be covering it in this episode. And what is it that I'm going to be covering? It's basically integrating your newly learned concepts within your performance. Might be a little confusing to some of you. Allow me to explain. So, I have quite a few people on Discord chat that I hang out with on WWG or Worldwide Glovers Group. If you don't know what that is, I would certainly tell you should be already on there if you are just learning about this, because it is a great place for you to learn and get better at gloving as a whole.
You're not my dad!
But one major thing a lot of people bring to my attention is that when they learn new concepts and they worked on new concepts and relatively kind of mastered the concept that they've been working on, whether it's just a simple sequence or whatever the case may be, they hit one other obstacle that, it's something I don't necessarily dismiss, but it's something I also don't put into the forefront and actually sit there and examine this phenomenon when it comes to the gloving community. And I do think that's kind of weird that I haven't covered it at this point. And when it comes to integrating new concepts, newly learned concepts into your show, it can get a little hairy, and I can understand why, because you already propped up this, the style of performance that you've had, and trying to throw something new into it can sometimes feel like you're throwing the trains off the rails, and all of a sudden you're going off the side of a cliff type deal. That's understandable, it's a new concept. It's something that you're now trying to implement within something that has not been implemented before within your show. Totally get that. So a lot of the people always tell me I love how I learned clusters, but I just never throw them in my shows for some reason. I don't understand why. I can sit here and say there's a plethora of different reasons, whether it's a psychological or sociological or just some weird emotional hang up that you have, whatever the case may be. I'm not going to sit here and say that's what it is, because first of all, I am not a therapist, and I do not have a doctorate's degree in psychology. So me trying to sit there and say it's a psychological thing is...
Stop it. I said stop it.
Yeah, okay, I'll stop doing that. I'm getting a little too sidetracked. But with that being said, I will certainly say, yes, I understand this frustration, because I learn new concepts, and I always learn new concepts all the time. I have the hardest time throwing them in my shows.
Say what?
So, why is this a problem? Where did this become a problem? Well, it's not really a huge problem. It's just, sometimes you just forget to throw it in. It's something you've been working on, and you just kind of get into the groove of things, and you just kind of forget to throw it in. Maybe sometimes it's just, you don't know where to throw it. You don't know if this is actually an appropriate time to throw this new concept. Which, if you're sitting there thinking, debating whether or not it's a good time to throw the new concept, it's probably the point that you need to throw the concept. That's just my thought. I don't know about you, but that's how I think about it. But you also have one thing that some people also sit there and think, and they feel like they're not sure if they're ready to throw it. If you've been working on this concept and you really got it down by actually, getting the drills down for this particular concept, you learn the technique to pull off this concept, you understand the mechanics that go within this concept for you to learn to understand and to operate, and of course you're learning to apply the musicality, the showmanship, the storytelling, the abstract aspects within the gloving craft that most people don't really take into consideration. Now, yes, storytelling, showmanship, and musicality are one of the big three things that people really care about in the abstract categories to focus on. But those aren't necessarily the only things you need to worry about when it comes to the abstract aspect of implementing new concepts. But that's the thing. You went through these drills. Somebody taught you these drills of how to learn this concept. So you go through the technique, you learn your mechanics, you get the musicality down when you can actually do it to a set tempo or wherever the case may be. Like, as weird as this sounds, a lot of us glovers like to make the noises with our mouths as we practice, just because it helps us not only understand musicality and implementing that within the concept, but it's also training us on our musicality by showing how musicality can be applied to the concept when we use our mouths.
I don't know, man. Seems kind of gay to me.
I know that sounds really weird and unusual, but trust me, it's a thing that does work. Like, if you watch Greg Irwin do some of his demonstrations with his finger ballet, especially back in the day when he didn't have his little orchestra, sound effect troupe with him, he would actually make the sounds with his mouth and actually show the performance by using the sounds with his mouth. So that's where I get that idea from, and it actually works for the most part. If you actually kind of creating a beat for you to follow, it's helping you, one, understand and work with musicality, and two, it's also showing you your demonstration of you understanding musicality and how music is structured. Therefore, you're allowed to put the two and two together to work on it. You see where I'm going with this? I know it sounds weird and convoluted, but it does work. Trust me, it works.
Wow, that was
But yes, so you go through the drills, then you have your problems. Now, what are ways to solve this problem? Well, there's quite a bit of different ways you can go about it. First of all, one thing I will certainly say, feedback's going to be the best way to help. It's probably one of the number one best ways to help. And the main reason is just because if it's something that looks a little sloppy, we're able to help you figure it out and clean it up. Not only that, we can also help you figure out where it can fit within your style, in terms of if it's something that's a little bit more tech heavy, we can figure out how you can fit that within your tech show altogether. If it's something a little bit more flowsy, we can actually integrate that into that part of your show as well. And not only that, we can actually help you kind of integrate both ends of it in terms of transitions.
wow.
But when it comes to feedback, you have the three various ways, okay? Which is, one, you do the video, you record a video, you post it online, people tell you stuff. Very common, it's a very standard thing that we have in the community. The other thing is live chats. Facebook has rooms, at least I think they're called rooms. Don't really know. Don't really use Facebook like that anymore. And of course, you have the Discord chats. That's the best place to get live feedback from, because that's where people are hanging out, and that's where people are working on their own craft, and it can help you work on yours. So that's one of those things that I definitely highly recommend if you want to get that kind of feedback and you want that in person, well, not necessarily in person, but that real-time reaction type deal with your performance and actually figuring things out for you and helping you get things rolling for you. That's one of the best ways. Now, of course, what is the best way to get the best form of feedback? In person. Everybody should know that. I shouldn't have to explain why in-person feedback is literally the best, because the person can be there and literally be moving your hands and helping you learn where to put your hands and place them in the places that they need to be. You see where that goes. So, you have your feedback. That is one of the ways that you're going to get better on how to implement your new foundly and learned concept. Okay? The other thing I will certainly tell you that is going to help you understand when it comes to implementing a new concept within your show is just trial and error, okay? One of the things I will certainly tell you is to test transitions in and out of this concept, especially if you're not using music right now. If you have newly mastered this concept, you should be learning how to transition into and out of this concept. Why? Because that's how you're going to get that nice blending it into your craft. Now, I will certainly say from my experience, when it comes to learning how to put transitions onto a newly learned concept and how to get in and out of it, it's basically you learn where your starting position is of this concept, and you just have to naturally learn how your hands get to that position naturally with the other concepts that you already have. Okay, it's one of the reasons why I push so heavily on deconstructionalism, and it's just because you can literally take these positions and break them down to parts. Therefore, you can know these parts and be like, hey, I actually make this hand formation in this particular concept that also lines up in this particular concept, so I can actually tie them together in that fashion. Now, that does sound easy, and yes, it is relatively easy on paper. But it comes with the type of practice that you have to put in is trying to get into that position to start the sequence, right? Not only that, you want to make sure that you're learning all the other ones that actually have the same kind of position within its concept, so you can use that as a way of transitioning. If you starting to see where I'm coming from, I really hope so.
How about no, you f***ing raisin?
I mean, guys, it's really difficult to try to explain. But it's one of those things that I always try to tell people is that if you have a starting position on that concept, learn or figure out what concepts that you already do and you're very used to doing that have a very similar position within its concept. Now, I mean, what do I mean by that? It's not like in the middle of doing a movement within the concept, it just so happens to line up for that like split second. You know, you could do that. It would be it's very tricky, but you could throw your audience off relatively easily and give them a nice little bit of surprise that way. But when it comes to what I like to say is like a pose step within your concept. So it's like kind of like how popping and locking is when they get into that pose and they lock it into place and they do that whole pop and it locks right there. That's what I'm kind of talking about, is when you find a particular move where you kind of do that pop lock pose setup with your positioning, right?
Yeah, get into it.
Those are the ones that I'm kind of focusing on when it comes to using those as your transitional point to go in and out of the concept, just because that allows you to sit there and pop up, you know, putting yourself in the position and then starting the concept. It's, again, that's a relatively easy way of thinking about it, and it's just one of many ways that you can actually go about doing that. One of the other things I will definitely explain to you is that when it comes to implementing new concepts into your show, is try to put it with similar concepts that it falls under. If it's a tech, style form of a concept, then try to fit it in with your other tech stuff. Now, yes, you can try to mix it in with your liquid and your digits and dials and clusters and all that stuff. That's understandable. What I'm saying, though, is a good way to integrate it easily is to put it in with the other similar styled concepts. Therefore, it doesn't feel like it gets put out of place, and it has a natural fitting home for it. Okay. Now, the reason why I say that it's so good to do it that way is because then you're putting it where it feels, familiar and comfortable and relative to your performance. Now, once you actually start doing that and you actually got it to implement within your show within that, now you're starting to get comfortable with implementing that concept within your show. And that's when you're actually going to start to learn where you can put it within your show outside of just being near the similar aligned concepts that it falls under. Okay, if that makes any sense. I know that sounds a little convoluted, but trust me, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
Nice.
And another thing I'll also say, if all else fails, this is a point of trial and error. If all else fails, just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Okay? It is a saying that my mom likes to say a lot. It is something that she talks about when it comes to her work as a professional paralegal, is that sometimes when it comes to her cases, she just has to throw everything at the wall and just see what sticks to the judge. That's kind of the same idea when all else fails when it comes to implementing your new concepts. Just throw it into your show, especially if you're in a very casual setting like a Thursday night lights, or you're hanging out in the late night labs here on Discord. That's great too. That's fantastic, because you're going to get that live feedback that people are like, hey, that was a really cool concept. Maybe you should try throwing it here. We're able to help you figure out where you can fit it into your show, because yes, you can learn all these new giant concepts and these intricate designs and all these awesome things, but if you don't know how to put it together, it's not going to make your show look good.
Why you bullying me?
Like, you can learn concepts but still have a crappy looking show. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of thought process that you need to understand, is that you just got to figure out where to put it. Now, you guys know, I've said it time and time before, that when it comes to particular concepts, sometimes you just need to figure out where they fit in terms of the song for you. And I don't mean like one particular song, I just mean in terms of the structure of the song. You have intros, you have verses, you have choruses, you have build-ups, you have breakdowns, you have drops, you have interludes, you have all these things. Concepts can fit within these particular categories of music.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
So, everybody should know that, if you don't know by now, I'm going to be surprised, but everybody should know at this point who listens to my podcast enough that I like to implement King Tutting at breakdown parts of the song. And it's just because how a breakdown works when it comes to me and King Tutting. It just aligns perfectly in terms of my movement aligning with the beats of the song, especially during a breakdown. Now, can I use King Tutting outside of a breakdown? Yes, and I've done it to great success.
Why you booing me? I'm right.
However, I feel the most comfortable when I do it in a breakdown part of the song. That's just me, that's what I like, and I feel comfortable doing that. When you start to learn the concepts and where they fit, particularly within certain segments of a song, that's where you're going to really start to learn where you want to throw them and where it's actually going to work really well for your show, if that makes any sense, right? But yeah, that's pretty much all for my episode. If you have made it this far, I have to congratulate you. You have won the prize. I didn't even notice that.
Hey, that's pretty good.
But yes, that is pretty much all for my show. I really do hope that you have learned something from this particular subject matter. I know this is something a lot of people always ask me, hey, I learned this concept and I've been wanting to throw it in my show. I just don't know how to throw it in there. And you tried a whole bunch of things. I'm pretty much just going to tell you, dude, just throw it in there. Force it in there and just see if it works.
No, God, please, no, no, no.
If it doesn't work, we at least are now learning where it does and does not work.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Okay, does that make any sense? I certainly hope so, because I don't know how else to explain it. But yes, so that's the end of my episode. I really do hope you guys enjoyed what I had to say on this particular topic matter. I really hope that what I did say did help you kind of gain the creative juices you need to really start figuring these things out. But of course, if you have questions that I did not cover in this episode, you do have the various social media outlets that you can hit me up at. First of all, I do have a Facebook page, which is aptly named The Glowing Paradigm. You can hit me up there. I am also on Reddit under the username Mutton Chop Guy, and I do have an email, which is muttonchopguy@gmail.com. I also do have a Discord server if you want to get on there. The link will be in this episode's description. And of course, I'm also on the Worldwide Glovers Discord chat, so if you want to find me there, I'm always on there anyways. And of course, I do have other places you can follow me on. I do have an Instagram if you want to follow me there. I usually post pictures of my dog and some light show videos if you want to watch those. It's totally cool. It doesn't really cost you anything to do. So if you want to go ahead and do that, that would be totally cool. And of course, I do have a YouTube channel, which, if you guys don't know, as of last night, at the time of this recording of this episode, I have finally backlogged all my episodes onto YouTube. So I'm finally caught up, and I'm going to try to start implementing the video aspect part of this podcast, so that way on YouTube you guys can look at my beautiful face
Stop it. Get some help.
and just make fun of me while I talk into a camera for about 20 to 30 minutes at a time, because that's what I do. But yes, you do have those places. I just caught up onto YouTube, so if you want to catch up on and binge a bunch of my stuff, because I know a lot of people like using YouTube as it is, you got YouTube now. Of course, I am also on a new platform known as Anchor. It is powered by Spotify. If you did not click on this, episode link that's from any of the Facebook or Reddit outlets that I post my links to, I don't know how else you listen to my stuff besides the wonderful distribution that they give me. I'm also on Apple, Google, Pocket Cast, Pocket Radio, Radio Heart, all that stuff. I'm on various platforms. So you do have various ways of listening to my show. But yes, that is pretty much all for my episode. I do want to thank everybody who has been showing their support so far. I do want to say that if you like the content that I create and you do wish to help me create better content, you always have the option of donating to me on Patreon.
Run.
Yes, I do have a Patreon. As little as $1 a month will go a very long way to help me get closer to my first goal of making to $1,000 a month. That way I can do this full time and don't have to do a day job to supplement what I need to do for this show. But yes, that will be all for me today. Once again, thank you for your support. I absolutely love you guys, but I am your host, Peter, aka LPD Dubuque, and I'll see you guys all next week.